Hey everyone! A couple weeks ago, on May 1st, the Fed did as expected and kept the overnight rate unchanged. No surprise there. The Fed cited elevated short-term inflation risk and they're maintaining their cautious stance, which means interest rates will be higher for longer. Now, the risk of keeping rates elevated is that they could be too high for too long, and that could spawn a recession. And finding that precise moment when inflation is moving toward the Fed's target of 2%, but before the economy shifts into a recession, has to be spectacularly difficult. The Fed's threading the needle here. I think the Goldilocks zone between an inflation resurgence and recession risk is very narrow, which is why no one has ever truly succeeded in pulling off a soft landing. Now, as those of you who regularly watch my videos probably noticed, I prefer to focus on opportunities and silver linings. But I also try to highlight potential risks that commercial real estate investors should monitor. And even though most economists still predict a soft landing, I think it's prudent to monitor for warning signs of a recession. But which ones? For a long time, I tracked the yield curve, the difference between the short-term and long-term treasury rates. The 2-year, 10-year yield curve inverted in July 2022. That's 22 months ago. But the 3-month treasury tends to be a bit more reliable, and the 3-month, 10-year yield curve inverted in October of 2022, 19 months ago. So either a recession is right around the corner, or the inverted yield curve indicator isn't working very well for some reason. Maybe because of the economic disruptions created by COVID, or because of all the stimulus that was injected into the economy, or some other reason. But regardless, it looks like the inverted yield curve recession indicator, which has been blinking red for over a year and a half, might not be a good metric this time around. But there's another indicator I monitor called the SOM rule. If anything, the SOM rule has been even more accurate in identifying recessions than the yield curve, but it doesn't give much of an advanced warning. The SOM rule, developed by economist Claudia Somm, says that if the average unemployment rate over the last 3 months is 50 basis points higher than the lowest 3-month moving average unemployment rate over the prior 12 months, you're probably in or will soon be in a recession. So currently, the unemployment rate is 3.9%, and the 3-month moving average is 3.87%. And the lowest 3-month moving average over the prior 12 months is 3.5%. So the difference is 37 basis points, which is below the 50 basis point threshold to signal a recession, which means we're probably not in a recession right now, and a recession likely isn't imminent, but we're getting pretty close to the edge. If unemployment increases by 20 basis points to 4.1% in the next 2 months, then we might face an increased risk of a recession. And that brings me back to the Fed. Both Claudia Somm and Moody's chief economist Mark Zandi have repeatedly said that the Fed should cut rates sooner rather than later, and that the Fed is running the risk of breaking something, potentially causing a recession by keeping rates too high for too long. But remember, the Fed's trying to do something that hasn't been done, achieve a soft landing, and they're being cautious. Currently, the Fed is more afraid of a resurgence of inflation than they are of a recession. If the Fed does spark a recession, hopefully it would be short and shallow. But you never know. And signs of a recession could probably be enough to spur the Fed to action, causing them to rip the Band-Aid off and cut rates more aggressively. Now, from a commercial real estate standpoint, here's what I think a recession would mean for investors. First, it could slow household formation, weighing on demand for apartments and self-storage. Second, it could restrain consumer spending, weighing on demand for retail and industrial space. And third, it could push interest rates down a bit, which would theoretically spur commercial real estate deal flow following a short market pause as investors recalibrate their underwriting to account for the recession. So we'll keep monitoring the unemployment rate. And as always, we'll keep our eyes on the horizon.